Hello, welcome to the 360 Method, a podcast where we talk about everything Autism 360, what's going on in the program, chatting with team members, and most importantly, chatting with our mindset extraordinaire, Renae Tate. Hello, Renae.
Hello, how are you today, Ella?
Yeah, going well. Happy Friday to us.
Yes, great to get to this time of the week, and I'm sure all the parents are looking forward to a weekend and having a little bit of downtime after a busy couple of weeks getting back to school. It's I know for me it's been a big shift for my children. I've got my daughter going into year 11 and my son in year 8, and I think every year's just new, and it's quite a bit for the parents to take on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's we are kind of steamrolling our way towards March. It's happening, whether we like it or not. So this week we're going to be talking about executive functioning and organization. So before we get started, I'm your host, Ella Bailey. I'm an Autism 360 veteran coach and explorer of all things parenting support. Before I became an Autism 360 team member, I worked at a psychological research lab and as well as in behavioral psychology. So I wanted to say welcome to our lovely listeners. And again, we would love to hear from you as always. Please drop us a line at hello@autism360.com. We'd love to hear your stories, your thoughts, feedback from what we chatted about last week in our anxiety episode. We'd love to hear it all. So before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, on whose land I live and work, and from where this podcast is being broadcast today. This is not a substitute for medical advice. This is a support podcast, a community, but it is not going to replace medical or allied health support. If you are worried about your child, please do go seek that professional assistance. So this week we are talking about organization and executive functioning. It's a big topic for a lot of people. We are going to be looking at it firstly from the kind of parenting strategy perspective, and then Renae is going to pop in with her awesome mindset perspective. So I'll just get started. Organization and executive functioning. I guess, it's something that a lot of people don't realize can be the issue that's going on with their kiddo. There's some executive functioning struggles. They're not able to, they're not able to kind of take a step back from what's going on in the day-to-day and make bigger plans and those sorts of things. Often parents can see that more as a kiddo just not following through, being forgetful. A lot of parents think that their kids are just kind of being a bit lazy, being a bit floppy, when really what's going on is that there's a limited capacity or a different capacity for organizing themselves and planning for their lives. And so I would sort of really encourage parents, have a look at your kiddos' behaviors from a 10,000 foot view. What can you see pattern-wise? What can you see big picture? Is it helping? Is it hindering the plans that you have in place at the moment, the structures that you're using? How are they coping with the everyday demands? So I guess that's sort of kind of background thoughts. Are we able to, understand where our kids are coming from and understand that actually what's going on is not, a lack of motivation, a lack of drive, a lack of will to succeed. It's just more that actually what they have is a struggle with their executive functioning. And so my top tip for that is to go with your child's strengths. Autistic kiddos, neurodiverse folks, They, they have differences in brain functioning from the typical experience. But I really want to stress that doesn't have to be negative. It doesn't mean that they're, worse at X or better at Y. It just means that we need to think outside the box in terms of things that are going to be helpful to support them in their executive functioning, and that's not bad. So, there's a lot of kids on the spectrum, adults on the spectrum who get a lot out of visually processing information that typically would be available in an audio format. So, audio or written format. They might process it better graphically. So go with your child's strengths, figure out how they process information, what their learning style is, and use that to support them in their executive functioning, rather than trying to fit them into an executive functioning model that maybe makes sense to you or that you see other people using, because that's just going to set them up to struggle with something that they're already struggling with, So that would be my first tip. Go with your child's strengths, lean into the way that they process information, and use technology that works for them to support their executive functioning. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is look for autistic adult inspiration. So I really want to stress that we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. When it comes to organization, when it comes to processing, understanding our kids, understanding what's going to work for them, we're not starting from scratch. There's a whole community out there of autistic adults, of actually autistic individuals who can give us insight into things that our kids may not be able to communicate with us yet. So let's use that, if there's an autistic adult out there who says, what doesn't work for me is a diary, but what does work for me is keeping audio notes to myself, and that's something they can share as an insight into our children's understanding, then oh my God, let's hack that system. There are Facebook groups run by autistic adults. There are blogs run by autistic adults that are happy to share their experience of moving through the world as a neurodiverse person, that we can go to say, respectfully, as a parent to a neurodiverse child, a child on the spectrum, can you give me some insight into some ways that might help to support my child's executive functioning? Use the resources that are available. I think that's such an important resource to tap into. It's going to shortcut a whole lot of trial and errors and take us straight to some things that are going to be maybe not something we would have gone with originally, but that are going to set our kids up for success. And then my last tip is going to be, when it comes to executive functioning, start with support and then move to independence. So if, for example, our kiddo is not succeeding with managing their homework load, they're not succeeding with, remembering the things they need to do for school or whatever, it's not helpful, before we have set up the support that they need to manage those tasks now, to push for independence straight away. So instead of saying, well, that's something that you need to be able to manage on your own, go ahead and do that, or pushing them in a way that really prioritizes their own management of that situation, recognizing that in order to learn those executive functioning skills and move to independence, we need to start with support. We need to start with accommodations, with systems in place to give them the support and accommodations that they need to manage it now when they don't have the skills, in order to be in a place where they can learn the skills. I hope that makes sense, because, often parents can get caught up with this idea of, developmentally appropriate, by this age, they need to be able to X. By this age, they need to be able to Y. And the reality is, if your kiddo can't it doesn't matter whether they should be or not, because they can't. So start with where they're at and try to take the judgment out of it while you're giving them support before you move them to independence. So they're my top 3 tips. What do you think, Renae?
Absolutely, Ella, and I think that's a really good tip, to just be quite patient with them, but also, you know, setting our children up for success as much as we can with the right support. You know, because I think sometimes it's hard to understand, you know, why can't you remember this, or why can't you organize this? And I think it's just being very understanding, but giving them the tools to really help support them is really important. And I had a mother the other week who, she said, my house is just such a mess. I've got so much clutter. And, you know, we looked at how that was impacting on her, but also on her children. And, you know, things like that, like decluttering, making the house as, you know, clutter-free as possible. Helping our children in that way will really help them not feel overwhelmed or overloaded in a way that helps them to be, you know, able to organize themselves more. You know, organizing themselves the night before so that the mornings aren't, you know, too stressful and crazy. I think they're just really good things to go, you know, like, let's lay our uniforms out the night before, you know, where's your shoes, where's your bags, just those things that in the morning then, you know, they don't have as much to try and think about, and it really helps them, you know, get off on the right foot for the day. So I think they're really good tips to, you know, mention about supporting them. And you know, I guess probably just to add to one that I think would be good for the parents, because, you know, the more organised we are, the more we teach our children those skills as well. And us being organised helps everything run a lot smoother, as we know. And I know a lot of the parents come to me and they say, you know, I'm not great at organisation or having a routine or that structure. So, you know, today I had a tip for the parents that I thought would, you know, help the parents out there as well. So one of the things that I think is a really good exercise is to look at, what are your big rocks? Like, what are those most important things in your life right now? And Stephen Covey has some really good videos on YouTube that I really encourage you to look at, about how to get more out of, you know, time management, to be more organized and to really prioritize those things that are most important. And I know a lot of the parents think, well, you know, I miss out on a lot of things. I don't get to do a lot of things right now for myself. And so, you know, that's only at the moment. Things will change over time, but I think prioritizing is really the key as well, because when you look at what are my most important things right now, and you structure yourself and organize yourself around that, you are going to be so much more effective in your time and organization, which is not only helping you, but it helps your whole family. So, you know, it's good exercise to just get a piece of paper, draw out, what are my big rocks? What are those most important things in my life right now? And, you know, could be, you know, obviously my family is really important, my work, my health, those things, my relationship with my partner, they may be your big rocks right now, you know, and then all those other little things can come in around that, friends, hobbies, different things like that. But if you're not putting your energy and your focus into the things that are most effective, then that's not going to help you to, you know, be as organized and focus on the things that matter the most. So from that, then look at what are your priorities, and then I would encourage you to break it down into, what are my top 3 goals for, you know, in these areas? What do I want to achieve? You know, have that bigger picture perspective. And from those goals that you've then set out, I would encourage you to then go, right, what do I need to achieve each week and each day towards that? So basically chunking it down. And one of the things that I suggest to people is to then look at each day, what are my most important tasks? What are those things that are most important to get done? And when we are focusing on those things and doing those things, everything else flows so much better around that. So first of all, looking at your big rocks, what are they? What are your goals around those? What is it that you want for your family, for your relationship, for your health, for your work? And then look at chunking that down even further, so that every week and every day you're really clear about, well, what do I need to do? And when you chunk it down like that, it becomes achievable. I write down my top 3 things, my most important tasks, and I cross those off first, so that then other things can get fit in around that. But I think when you're juggling work and family and children, you know, our time management and organization has to be really good. And so by getting clear about what your priorities are, what your most important tasks are, that really helps you to focus and to be more organized around the things that matter the most. And when you're organized, you teach those skills to your children, but also, you know, you're able to help them be more organized, because you're not running around, you know, feeling like a crazy person going, I've got so many things to do, I don't even know where to begin. So that's my tip for the parents out there today, just to, you know, get really clear about it. Where are your leaks? Where are those things that you're putting your time and energy that's not actually helping you to achieve your goals? Maybe it's sitting on social media more than what you should be. You know, maybe it's just I'm spending a lot of time talking to my friends on the phone. Yes, that's nice, but right now, is that actually helping you to achieve what you need to be achieving each day? So I think it's just getting that laser focus, what's my priorities, and chunking it down so that you can get everything done that you need to and stay organized. And as I said, you know, we can teach these skills to our kids as well, because if we don't have that happening for ourselves, I think that it just creates a lot more chaos for our children as well. And the more we can keep the things calm and very orderly, the easier it is for our children to be able to organize themselves and stay on top of things as well. So they're my tips for today, Ella. I think we've covered the children and the parents. I really look forward to hearing people's feedback on that. You know, do you feel like maybe there's some areas at the moment where you are putting your time and energy that's not actually helping you to achieve what you need to each day for your family? And just looking at those things honestly, because you know, you will get a lot more achieved, and you will really feel like you're a lot more in control when you're focusing on those things. So just wrapping up today's session, looking at those skills to organize your child and yourself as the parents. You know, we need to teach them those skills, but we can't necessarily teach those skills if we're not using them ourselves. So thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at the next